What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Diehard MMA podcast. I am your host, as always. My name is Clint, and we are coming off of one of the absolute wildest, craziest cards I think we have ever seen. UFC 259 was nuts from top to bottom. Some of the most unreal results I think we've ever seen in the cage. Just wild stuff, man. Looking forward to hopefully getting things a little bit back to normal this week. We've already got 60 live viewers hanging out in the chat this evening. How is everybody doing? We got Bill Doe, Leon Nestong. That's right. Those live bets were fire on Saturday. We had some fun with that. SD Cruiser hanging out. We've got Herman, Newsom, Freeman. I'm Just Drew. The Grateful Dude is here. Wormsy. Not sure how we pronounce that one. Chris, we got the Czar. We got Josh Benedict, Brady, Javi, M. We've got Jack, Good Willie, Mike Smith. Everybody, how's everybody doing? How is everybody doing tonight? I hope you are all well. And you know what? I want to take as little time as possible on last week because we've got a special guest that I want to bring in and get this party started. We're talking UFC Vegas 21. We've got a lot of fights to go ahead and get through and break down. We ended up having a minus 3.4 unit night on Saturday, lost a little bit. Those favorites that I decided to roll with did not come through for us. We dodged a bunch of bullets. As I said, this event was full of plot holes, and then we got a couple of scores with some decent spots. The best thing that we did, though, was the live bets. If you follow me on Twitter at Diehard MMA Pod, or if you joined me on stream over with the boys at Pub Sports Radio, we gave out some winners. We did Jones to start the night. I tweeted out Jones at by knockout at plus 900. We got the Cruz Medic under 1.5 at plus 115. We took Njoku live when he was down against Carl Zolberg at about even money. And then we did Makachev by sub at 4-1. So we made up for the loss if you got with me live. But as you all know, I don't count those on the personal record because I know not everybody has access to them. And I know not everybody is following me on Twitter or live streaming with me. So the official unit is a loss, minus 3.4, which means we got to change up the shirt. The other one was not lucky anymore. So we're rolling right along. Without further ado, we're breaking down UFC Vegas 21. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. Bringing in none other than Gianni the Greek Gambler. You may know this man from Wager Talk TV. You may know him from the UFC's On the Line. He's gracing us with his presence again here today. Gianni, how you doing, my friend?
Never better, brother. Thanks for having me. And yeah, what a great event last week was. And I know, just real quickly, let's get it out of the way, because I know you had a little Megan Anderson action yourself, like I did. And I just have to say, if they were fighting next Saturday, I'd place that very same bet again at plus 750. I would. And here's why. Let me just explain that so that the viewers out there that don't want to waste their time could just click off right now, because I approach it very differently. I'm a day trader when I bet sports. I bet sports every single day. I bet multiple markets, and I look for inefficiencies in the market, and I look for value. Now, I could be talking all nonsense. The one bottom line is numbers don't lie. Yeah. And I've documented 6 straight years of turning a profit. Every pick I've released is documented 6 straight years. And the last 3 years at multiple places. Finished number 1 in MMA last season, still number 1 this year in MMA. Now, again, past doesn't guarantee future, and that isn't to tout me at all. I'm simply here to say the way I do it works for me. It's produced profit. If what you're doing works for you, maybe you could pick some things off that'll help you increase your ROI. That's great. Or ignore everything and keep doing what you're doing. That's what I say. I mean, if you're winning, you truly are a profitable sports bettor, because there's only about 1 out of every 100, if that. And I've been in Vegas, 20 plus years, and the data is out there. I mean, these are publicly traded companies, so it's not like they're run by the mob anymore. Yeah. You know what the profits are, what the profit margins are with the sports book. And they say, less than 1 out of every 100 has positive lifetime earnings. So if you're that less than 1 in 100, you're that MMA professional UFC fighter that's capable of making it to the UFC. Keep doing it the way you're doing. Don't listen to my striking or my grappling or anything, because obviously your skill set has gotten you to the UFC. But if it hasn't, then maybe take a step back and look at it a little different. Because what you're ultimately doing is, remember, you're betting a sport, you're betting a market. You're not fighting. You're not betting the fighters or anything like that. Your war is with the sports book. Your fight is with the betting line. Your only goal is to win money against the sports book. The market should become, it shouldn't really matter whether it's MMA, tennis, boxing. It should be where you find the advantage. But you got to be able to separate yourself from the sport and the investment vehicle. Now, if you're doing it for fun, guys, and for fantasy, and you're going to gamble a little, and you could afford to win or you could afford to lose a little, God bless you. Keep doing it. Try to pick winners. Try to predict the outcomes. Try to be a psychic, and God bless you, dude. I hope when the dust settles, you come out ahead. I'm not your bookie. I don't care. But if you are actually betting hard-earned money, because I've seen so many people out here, some terrible stories. It's so hard to be profitable. If you are going to do it, at least try to do it right. And again, that way is beating the sports book. It's not necessarily just MMA and the fighters. Remember, your fight is with the betting lines. It's not necessarily with the matchup. You know, the line compared to your implied win probability should be the reason you're making the bet and no other reason. If there's another reason, then you should be doing it for entertainment, and that's gold. I don't do it for entertainment, so it may be a little different the way I approach things. Hopefully you enjoy it and we can make you some money along the way, or at least save you some money.
That's where it's at. And that's why we love having you on, because we're somewhere in the middle, as you know, Gianni. We're striving.
Sorry, not to interrupt, because just to get back to the Nunes thing and why I would bet it again. And again, I won't go on a rant this time. But here's why the Nunes thing, because this needs to make sense. A minus 1250 favorite has to win. When I bet Megan Anderson, Nunes was a minus 1250 favorite. That means she has to win 93% of the time for you to break even. Now, every great investor, every profitable investor on the planet knows no matter what model they make, whether it's for commodities, crypto, stocks, you have to factor in a black swan event, whether a 1 or 2% chance that in that model, there is a 1 or 2% chance of a black swan event, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a hurricane, something that is a once in a 100-year thing that can happen, but it has to be in your model, 1 every 10 year, 20 year, depending on what the metric is. Anyway, make a long story short. So let's say we just say, okay, we had 2% for black swan. So 93 break even, 92% we have to factor in for black swan event. So now we're at 95%. Now I'm going to lay minus 1250 and my break even now is 95%. So where's my edge? For me to have a 5% margin, for me to say out of every 100 I bet, I'm going to win $5 because that's my, return on investment. That's my edge. She has to win 100% of the time. Now I get it. If you watch that fight Saturday, you may walk away
like 100%.
Oh, she'd win 100% of the time. Exactly. Exactly. But let's take it the next step, because again, we're playing 3D chess, not checkers. Yeah. We know that any outcome, single outcome, there's randomness involved. So we can't put too much stock in how that one played out. If they fought it 10 times, you can't say with certainty it's going to play out like that. That just has no statistical significance at all. You can't back that up with data. I mean, that's just a guess. There's nothing in the map. It was one fight. There's randomness to any outcome. Just ask the New Orleans Saints. They should be in the Super Bowl if it wasn't for a bad missed flag, bad pass interference call a few years ago. And that's why I'm saying. So again, not that Megan Anderson is the best bet or a great bet. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm ultimately saying is, although Amanda Nunes won, it was a terrible bet from a margin standpoint, from gaining an edge standpoint. Now, if you say, hey, I cashed my ticket and that's what a good bet is to me, if that's going to be your philosophy forever and I can't change that, then, God bless you. Good luck, but most get that you could place great bets that lose. Yep. I could give you 10-1 on a coin flip, and if we flip it one time, I could beat you. You still made a hell of a bet. You got to take that bet every time.
Exactly.
But you may lose it because there's a randomness in the outcome on any one event. So let's dive in. Tell me where we're going with this. I just had to get that out of the way because, again, I don't want people wasting their time. I don't waste their time. They don't waste mine. And they need to know what they're in for before they dive in for the next hour or so with us.
For sure. I'm along the same lines as you, so I take a lot of heat for the value plays I take stabs on, so I'm glad you said that. Before we get this thing rolling, what I like to do these days, Johnny, is I've started degenerating a little bit in the NHL, and on Monday I let people know what I'm on just in case they want to roll with me or fade me. Last week, I reverse swept the board. I lost every single bet that I gave out, but I basically crushed the entire rest of the week. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Tonight I like the Coyotes, the Canucks, the Kings, and I'm on the over in the Sharks and the Blues, over 6. There we go.
You want to know my hockey tonight?
Hey, give us some hockey. Let's go.
Minnesota plus 105. Arizona plus 1.5, minus 160. Under 5.5 in Arizona, Colorado. Under 5.5, Kings, Anaheim. And St. Louis minus 150.
There we go. All right, everybody, lock it in. If you want to roll with and make some cash tonight.
Follow or fade. As long as you make money, I'm happy for you. I swear I am. I really am.
Exactly. Let's do it. That Coyote spot I really like today. All right, let's go. So what we've got, UFC Vegas 21. We are sticking around the Apex, apparently. Dana White's trying to get us to move to Texas, but that hasn't happened just yet, so keeping the same venue. And we're kicking the night off with a bit of a banger, man. We've got Matheus Semelsberger coming in here against Jason Witt. Semelsberger is 7-2. Witt is 18-6. So what we've got with Matthew is he's a bit of a pressure fighter. I like what I see from this kid. Hits really hard, sharp hands, wades forward, walks his opponents down, and he's not afraid to get dirty. He gets in there. You know what I mean? He is fine to brawl. The only problem is he's a little bit hittable. I do like his big left body kick. He does have a solid double leg takedown, and if he gets your back, he can backpack you all night. Jason Witt, actually relatively similar. Big blast double legs. He's heavy from top position. He moves to the back efficiently. He's got a nasty ground game, high-level BJJ, but this guy keeps his hands low. He's super, super hittable. The only thing is I've bought in over at Gloria MMA. You know, James Krause has taken over there, and he's done some wonders. You know, those fighters are looking better than they ever have, and Jason Witt is one of these Gloria MMA guys. We've got a really, really tight line here on this one. Witt opened up as a slight underdog, plus 140. Money's come in on him. He's sitting at plus 105 right now. Slight favorite on Matt. And honestly, I feel like this is a spot where I may look to see if this line flips. I kind of like the Matt side of things. How do you feel about this one, Gianni? What are you looking at?
I wouldn't be surprised if Witt goes off as the favorite, even though the line has moved the other way. Because what we saw was it opened at minus 110, the first book that created a market. Shot all the way to as high as minus 170. Huge difference between minus 110 and minus 170. Right there, you're losing the 11% margin if you like the favorite. So if you like the favorite, it's almost gone at that point. So that's when you started seeing dog money come in. And it's continued to come in, and we're now looking at minus 125. I think that's going to continue to drop. And if that does, I agree with you. I think the value's the other way. I think you're going to see the Jason Witt money continue to roll in. You got two guys that are coming off wins as underdogs. Both were steamed as dogs. Here's what sticks out to me. With Jason Witt, his UFC fights were very one-sided. His win was one-sided. His loss was one-sided. Both these guys in their losses have been finished. And in both losses via finish, all their losses come via finish. But you look at how heavily favored this fight is to go the distance. The over 2.5 is minus 200. It's telling you 2 out of 3 times the market's telling you it's going to go to distance. I think that's too high for a welterweight fight. I really do. Now, stylistically, I don't know if that meshes well. It's Monday. Guys, keep this in mind. I do 3 models. All my betting's based on 3 models. 2 of them before the weigh-in, 1 after the weigh-in, and then some other signals that I believe have statistical significance or I believe are backed with predictive analytics. That's how I place my bets. I come up with an implied win probability, which is my price. I compare it to their price. If there's value, I bet it. The under to me seems like it's priced a little high. Not enough yet to place a bet, but I do think the money's going to keep coming in, and the under will end up being plus EV. And especially with both these guys, that's how they have gotten it done. But I agree with you on the value if this line flips. There's not much data on the Semelsberger side. 9 pro fights, that's the problem. And you got to weigh it with the amount of rounds he's fought. And it's skewed. The one big plus, though, is that 6 years, 28 to 34. Once they cross 30, you start to see the decline. I know everyone talks about, the prime 30s, 32s. They've got the experience, the IQ and all that. The data doesn't support that. So to me, I look at that. If the numbers don't support it, it's all nonsense. That's why I don't spend time, and please don't take it the wrong way, analyzing tape. Because every fight there's so much randomness. So unless I'm going to go back and watch the entire career of every single fighter, which I don't have the time to do for every one of their fights, I look at the data and I trust the data. Sometimes, of course, it's going to be skewed. And sometimes the box score doesn't tell the story. Just like in a football game, one turnover could be the difference between a win and a loss. And the box score may not support that. But in a big sample size, when you have enough fights, 10, 15, 20, I trust that more than trying to watch their 20 last fights and then remembering what I saw and finding value that way. To me, it just doesn't make sense because, again, I bet sports every day. Like I bet hockey, I bet college. Today, I bet hockey, baseball, and college basketball. I bet 16 or 17 pieces. That's 32 teams? If I watch the last 3 games of each team, I just watched 90-something games at 2+ hours each. When am I going to do this? Again, there's not enough time in the day. So I trust that. I like the dog side if he becomes a dog. Otherwise, it's probably a pass and look to the under.
That's kind of where I'm sitting, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Johnny, because I've left myself a little asterisk here down at the bottom. I was going to circle back after you did your side of things and say that I'm taking a look at the under. I do a show that's all about the totals a little later on in the week where I talk overs and unders, and I've left myself a note on this one. I think the under 2.5 is a live spot here because either Witt is going to come out and expose the grappling of Matheus. I'm just going to call him Matheus because his last name is too damn hard to say over and over again. But Witt's going to come out and he's going to have an edge in the grappling, in which case I think he probably gets choked out. Or Matt is going to be able to defend the takedown, keep this thing standing, in which case I think the low hands of Witt is going to get him knocked out again. I think there's a lot of volatility in this fight, and getting, plus 155, plus 170 on an under 2.5, that might be the spot I'm looking.
I love it. And that's what I need. Later, I spend the week listening to analysis. I watch your show. There's a couple of guys I'm fans of. I told you last time that guys that break down, the fights. Safdik's one of the guys. Fight of the night guys. I watch those guys because they do it from that angle, the angle I don't. And you don't want to be in an echo chamber and only, talk with people that approach it your way. I want to get perspectives that I may not see. And luckily, with also being around the UFC, you got now access to fighters who do podcasts, Dan Hardy on shows giving you such analysis.
You got it made there.
How can you not listen to that stuff? I mean, I'm a fan of it. I just, like I said, I don't have the time to go back and watch 20 hours of tape myself. But the guys that do, man, more power to you. And thank you for putting it out there for us.
And we do what we can.
Keep it coming. I'm a fan.
Grinding over here.
I'm a fan, brother. I'm a fan.
All right. Next up, we got a women's strawweight fight, man. We got Gloria de Paula taking on Jinh Frey. And this is one where I'm so tempted, Johnny. So Gloria's only got 6 fights. She's 4-2, and that's my big problem. Jinh Frey is 9-6, but she's out of that prime window. She's up at 35 years old. She's taking on a young, hot fighter. And Gloria, she's got this really tall Muay Thai stance, heavy on her feet. She fights very long, extremely physical. And unless I'm mistaken, she's dating Mayra Silva, another female fighter that's really hot, up and coming here in the UFC. And she trains with her side by side every day. That's just the right place to be. You know what I mean? You're going to be filling those holes in your game and improving every single time we see you. And she looked great on the Dana White Contender Series. She's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. She's the younger fighter. She's explosive. Now, Jinh Frey, this girl is extremely physically powerful, just raw strength. She bullies her opponents around the cage, and if she can't overpower you, that's when she shuts down. That's when she loses. And that's a spot here where the one time we saw Paula have some trouble was when someone got in her face, took her down, and put her on the back foot. So I'm really leaning to the younger Gloria de Paula here, but she's a -170 favorite. You've got Jinh Frey as a +150 underdog. As much as I hate to say it, I'm a dog guy. I like to hunt the value with the underdogs. I feel like this is a favorite or pass spot, but I don't know if I want to lay -170 with this big step up in competition. What's your read on this one?
I had the pleasure of the privilege of covering the Contender Series, of getting to be there for those shows and have given a bet during it. So I handicapped the fighters, and she was one of them that I bet on the show. And she won for me. Her skill set was just so above her opponent in the Contender Series. Now, she doesn't have much experience, like you said, 4-2. And more importantly, though, those wins pre-UFC Contender Series were against opponents with a combined 6-5 record. 4 opponents, average of less than 3 fights each. Less, 1 fight over 500. So it wasn't against stellar competition. That's the negative. The positive is 10 years younger. It's hard to overcome that. I mean, when you have that kind of age gap, you have to have so much support for the other side, the older fighter, to back it. I don't know if the price is right. The negative with backing Gloria here is it opened 125, -125. And the break even at -125 is what, 56%. Now at -170, it's 63%. So you lost about 7% margin right there. For you to like the Gloria de Paula side now, you got to conclude she wins this fight 70% of the time. So if you thought this fight should have been close to -300 or so, 250, why not bet it when it opened? Unfortunately, the limits are low at that -125. So
Absolutely.
Most of the you can't even really get involved for real
smoked.
money. Exactly. It didn't come out to like 165 or so. And from here, we haven't seen much movement. I think it's going to keep moving. And I think if you like the favorite, you got to get on her now. Personally, I want to bet that side. I just, because the age, for me, that age is enough, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And having seen her on the Contender Series and her Muay Thai, the camp she comes out of, again, we don't have enough in 6 pro fights and the opponent she's faced to say the data supports she should be a -200 favorite against this opponent. Because again, sure, she's 0-2 in the UFC. She was a dog in both those fights. The market expected her to lose those 2 fights. And more importantly, she has double the professional, the fights of experience too. You got to factor that in. So, I mean, for Gloria to be a -200 favorite, again, I don't know if I could say that's plus EV. That she wins, 7 out of 10. So I think that's the right side, but I can't bet it. Maybe add it to parlays because, again, it's a parlays we explained last time are negative EV. So what's the difference anyway? I don't think she loses this fight. You know what I mean? It's going to be tough unless Jinh Frey could take her down over and over and over. And is that her style? That's where the weakness is, right?
Exactly.
I don't think she's going to beat her.
That's my problem. That's my problem.
That's what the data shows. Again, I don't want the data tells me the only way the dog wins is if she takes her down repeatedly and controls her.
Exactly.
And I don't see that. So I can't back it. I wish I saw it somewhere. I just haven't seen it.
I'm with you there, Gianni. So, for the sake of a pick, saying I think Gloria de Paula wins this fight.
Paula,
But I can't bet it at -170. I just don't think I can get there. I'm going to wait and see how they face off at the weigh-ins. We had Jinh Frey finally switched camps, which is a move that I always think is a good one. You get a new set of training partners, you get a new coach, people analyze your skill set and kind of take you back to square one. She's over at Fortis MMA, which is a good gym with a good head coach. If she comes out on point grappling, She can pull this upset. So I'm not going to risk my money here, but I think Gloria DePaula probably wins this thing via dominant striking decision.
I can't disagree. I can't disagree at all.
There we go. All right. Well, we're moving on. Really good fight coming up here next. Bantamweight. Jonathan Martinez taking on Davey Grant. Martinez is 13-3. Davey Grant is 12-4. Martinez comes out of Factory X, which seems to be kind of having a resurgence here in the last couple of weeks. Really slick striker on the feet. Another heavy plotting Muay Thai stylist. Walks his opponents down. Big power in his kicks. He's got a nasty teep. That's that front kick to the abs into the chest that people get hit with. He's always attacking the legs and the body of his opponents, and he's got that nasty knee straight up the middle. So if you want a level change on this guy, he's got an answer to that problem. Davey's a guy that he rips his opponent with body shots. I love seeing that from fighters. They just kind of bank that for later on in the fight. They grind their opponents down, and he has hard leg kicks himself, but he wings big hooks and drops his hands. So he's going to be very hittable. In fact, he went to war in his last fight against the guy. I'm blanking all of a sudden here on his opponent who just recently got cut from the UFC, Martin Day. He just absolutely threw down with Martin Day for 15 straight minutes. Now, Davey Grant is mostly a grappler. All of his wins come by submission. If he gets on top of you, you're in trouble. I've got a hard time seeing him take down Jonathan Martinez. And with the way he opens up on the feet and is so hittable, I think this is a prime spot for a knockout. But Jonathan Martinez is all the way up at -300, -310. The comeback on Davey Grant is +250. That's another high price tag, Gianni. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, for me, this is simple. If not for the big age gap, again, to me, that age is, I mean, it's one of the data points that has a ton of statistical significance. It really does. And we have so much sample size to back it up, you know, and fights. So for me, when someone crosses that like 8, 9, 10, 12 years, you got to, number one, have a lot of reason to back the older fighter. But here's the problem with Jonathan Martinez with taking that side. The value's gone, meaning, you know, he's 2-1 in 2020. He's had a great UFC year. I mean, he's 4-2 now in the UFC, but he was a dog in 2 or 3 of those. Now it's a much different situation. You know, you're going from winning as a dog to now having to win as a -320 favorite. Again, what's the break even? 75, 76%. So I got to conclude Martinez wins this upwards of 80+% of the time, that this line should be greater than -400, 420, 430. I think that's too high against, you know, Grant. If Grant's able to get takedowns, at least that's what the data shows here. That's his path to victory here. If he's able to get those. Now, this is another fight that's favored, at least the odds makers put it out there, and the market has agreed so far, heavily favored to go to distance. It's at bantamweight. It's got a coin flip a little more than half the time. It does go to a decision just by a small percentage. And if it does, again, now you're asking judges to decide that, and at -400, because again, you're betting -320, but to have any value, you concluded it's -400, right? Just like if you buy a stock at $100 a share, you're not buying it because it's $100 a share. You're buying it because you did the evaluation. It's 120 a share. Why else would you buy it? So again, if you can get there with Martinez, to me, 80%, I can't get there. The negative for Davey Grant is just not active enough. When you have 5 fights since 2016, that's a negative. 9 years, that's a negative. Those are all signals. Again, please don't take this the wrong way. I work with a lot of betting groups that win in different sports. It's no secret. Everyone knows I provide accounts, so I get to see what they bet. And for me, that's a bonus. And now, when you see, like, with MMA, they're not really betting these MMA fights till later in the week. Like the groups that are really get involved bigger later in the week. So any of this early money, even though we assume that it's sharp, it's coming from smaller markets, from books that start at the first market. Like this line opened to 90, now at 320. Now as bettors start getting involved, it's probably going to get even higher. And that's where again, I can't argue that Martinez side where I know you like him. He should win this fight. But for me, it would be a dog or pass situation. And unfortunately, I don't know if I could take the dog because of those negatives, the inactivity, the age difference. But I do see a path to victory. At least the data shows he's better defensively striking. And if he is able to secure takedowns and control a little bit, he can win a decision in a fight that's heavily favored to go to distance. At least that's what it shows to me right now. So it's most likely a pass or maybe sprinkle the dog for me.
There you go. All right. So I'm saying Jonathan Martinez. Again, the line is way too wide for me at this point. Johnny's saying value on the underdog, Davey Grant. Most likely a pass, though. So do with that what you will, guys. I think that's a pretty good assessment of the way this thing could go. I like Martinez. He's shown some good signs. But, yeah, this is not a fantastic fight for him, for sure. So we'll see what happens on that one. Moving right along, we got a guy here that I love, Gianni. This kid, I am so high on Charles Air Jourdain. This kid's I got a soft spot for him. He's just the kind of fighter that I like, and he's welcoming UFC newcomer Marcelo Rojo, who actually was supposed to make a short notice debut a couple of fights ago. His opponent ended up dropping out. They pulled it off the card. He was supposed to fight Barcelos, a fight where he was absolutely just going to get squash matched in. Now he's got actually a really good opponent here. Jourdain is 10-3-1. Rojo is 16-7. And Jourdain, he's kind of the kind of guy I like to call a technical brawler. He knows what he's doing in there, but he is more than willing to throw hands. You know what I mean? He throws with bad intentions every single strike he puts out there. Fast, accurate punches, good head movement, elusive, gets out of the way of the counter shots. He always rips his opponent's body up, and he uses that calf kick. Everybody knows all about the calf kick now. That's one of Jourdain's weapons. In his last fight, we all underestimated his opponent, Kape. Jourdain underestimated his opponent, Kape. He's talking about how he's going to run through this kid, and then he ended up in a war. He had an opponent that was way better than he assumed, and he ended up getting a draw out of it. So I think that's a moment where he kind of had to check himself on just how good, almost an Alexander Hernandez-esque moment where he went, okay, I can't look past these guys anymore. Marcelo Rojo coming in here. He trains out of Intram MMA in Tijuana. He trains with guys like El Teco. He trains with Brandon Moreno. But he's coming off of a 2-year layoff. We haven't seen this guy professionally fight in a long time. He does carry a high, tight guard with him. Stands tall. Big, explosive power. He likes to explode to close the range and get the distance short on his opponents. And then, you know what? The big thing is for me, he leaves his neck out whenever he tries to change levels. When he goes for takedowns, that guillotine is right there every damn time. He also is primarily a 135-pounder, and for this fight, he's moving up to 145 to take on the bigger Charles Air Jourdain. We've got Jourdain as a favorite, minus 255, minus 260, and the underdog Rojo coming back about plus 200, plus 210. What do you feel like on this one, Gianni? Do you like anything here?
First signals that popped out, the negatives for Rojo. UFC debut. Those fighters obviously lose more than they win. I think it's close to 55-45. 7 years older, that's a negative, especially since he's crossed 30. He's now 32. The problem, though, on the Jourdain side is he's 0-1-1 in 2020, and he just got a draw as a minus 450 favorite, and you're going to go out there and lay chalk with him again? Where's the confidence going to come from? That's the problem. And the biggest takeaway I hope you get from this is not every fight is bettable. In fact, few are, meaning the betting line gets to a point where the value isn't there, even though there will be a winner, negative EV, whether you bet fighter A, negative EV, whether you bet fighter B. And if that doesn't make sense, I won't waste time. Go back to the last time I was on here. I explained it, where I laid out the hypothetical. Fighter A 60%, fighter B 40%. This is your betting line. At that betting line, both were negative EV. And that's just the case. Because, again, that's the goal of the odds maker, of the bookmaker, to either shade the line against the market's biases to where they're willing to take the worst of it. That increases their hold, or have the line to where the result balances out, meaning is split. Like when you lay minus 110, they either need to split the money or split the result. If they could do one of those two things long term, they're going to be profitable. All they need is volume as a book. And a lot of times, if that number gets to where it's negative EV either side, just don't get involved. Again, if you should bet if you have an edge, if you see an edge. If you don't see an edge, your bet shouldn't be based on, I think this fighter's going to win. Your bet should be, you write down Charles Jourdain wins this fight 80% of the time. Then before you look at the betting line. Now I look at the betting line and I say, wow, he's minus 250. At 250, he's only got to win what? 70, 71% of the time. I think it's 80. I have about a 9-10% margin. Okay, I'm going to bet 100. I'm plus, $9, $10 EV, whatever. That's how you should be placing your bets. And again, here, that's the problem. With the Jourdain side, at this line, it would be Rojo or pass. But I don't have enough data to back Rojo coming out of Combate. And based on the level of opposition, he fought Jean Castaneda and lost in the third round, got finished. Yep. And we saw that with Gloria de Paula. Her 2 losses came against ex-UFC fighters. When that's the case, they may look like the much better fighter against this opponent. But if I don't really have the data to back that up, the model to say, yes, they win this is the reasoning, this percentage of the time, it's really doesn't, for me, it's not reason enough to place a bet. Again, not to go long, but that's why I don't want to bore you, but Rojo or pass for me.
I feel you. Now, I know you're not about taking out the crystal ball, Gianni, but this is a spot where I'm going to be very tempted come Saturday to look at the submission prop for Charles Jourdain. Because Rojo has such a weakness in that area, because he leaves that open, and because Jourdain, I think, is going to come out dialed in. He's got an underrated choking game, man. He's got a couple guillotines. He's got a couple rear naked chokes on his record. But all we've seen him do in the UFC is strike. So I think when these guys go at it, there's a chance that one of them gets rocked, it gets mixed up, it hits the floor. And with Jourdain being primarily a striker, with Rojo being primarily a striker, no one's going to be thinking submission. That number is going to be crazy wide, and I think that's probably going to be the way I look. The under might be a play here. We got a total set at 2.5. The under is plus 120. So again, for a couple guys that like to just stand and bang and throw heavies, I think someone's probably either going to get clubbed and subbed or knocked out cold. The under is kind of my lean here. And then, like I said, Jourdain by sub.
You know why I love it more than anything else? You're going against the narrative. And that's where you're going to get value when you're betting props. Again, I'm not a fan of playing psychic because you're just you're taking it one step harder, meaning it's hard enough to try to figure out the outcome, let alone how it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like now you're taking it a step even more difficult than it already is. Yeah. But the payoff, a lot of times the upside's worth it. If you're able to choose right and you're going against the narrative, there's a ton of upside, meaning if a Jourdain win, if the perception is he's going to win this by decision, and your prediction is against that narrative, then I say go for it. That's where you're actually going to find line value also, where you're playing it and without even, if you don't even approach it the way I do, you're going to make a bet that I would, because that is going against the narrative, which is how I make my prop bets. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to bet Tyson Fury by decision when everyone knows it's either the Bronze Bomber is either going to knock him out or Fury's going to win by decision. So how am I going to bet it? I'm going to bet it Bronze Bomber by decision or Fury by knockout. If I'm going to back it that way, or otherwise you're not going to get no value. And again, if you're not getting the best of it, placing bad bets that win is just a matter of time before, your mathematical certainty to lose money. Like that's the worst thing that could happen, is because, again, let's just keep going. But even losing bettors have very big hot streaks.
I feel you. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. It's the randomness. I got you. All right, moving right along. We've got Rani Yahya taking on Ray Rodriguez, a bantamweight fight here between these two. Yahya is one of these guys, Johnny. These Brazilians, they just never get old. Like every time I think these guys, we talked about how you got to be younger, it's a young man's game. You want to be right around that 28, 29 age. But then you get these guys, Glover Teixeira, Rani Yahya, like these dudes that'll do it until they're 40, 41, 42, and they just never start to fade. That's what this guy kind of reminds me of. He's got heavy, heavy hands, and he's one of these guys that is so sold on his ground game. He strikes with reckless abandon, trying to knock you down. He wants to corral you against the fence, use that to take you down, or knock you to the mat and then take your back. That's all he wants to do, is use that black belt that he's got. Ray Rodriguez coming in here, 16-7. He's 33 years old. He's a little older himself, and he's pretty big for the division. We saw him on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. He didn't do so hot. Got a short notice call up against my boy Brian Boom Kelleher. Shout out to Boom if you're watching the show. He lasted all of 40 seconds. He got caught in the guillotine by my guy Kelleher. And he just comes forward, heavy on his feet, hard leg and body kicks, decent ground game, but he's been out grappled by anybody he's faced that's UFC level. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here, and it's just really the size that kind of scares me off here. We got another big favorite, minus 275, minus 300 on Rani Yahya, who's the older of the fighter, but the far more experienced fighter. Ray Rodriguez coming back at plus 225 as the underdog. Oh, man, I'm so torn here, because this is one where when you get this jump up to the UFC at this late stage of your career, I don't normally want to back you as a dog and believe that you can suddenly make that level change. You know what I mean? So, again, it's kind of a parlay the favorite or pass, maybe Yahya by submission, but like you've mentioned a couple times, that's exactly the narrative. But I feel like that's exactly the way this fight is going to go.
Listen, here's one I'm not on the fence. I bet this fight.
Here we go.
This waiting till the margins get closer to make a official premium to release to my guys. Because, if you bet early in the week, the margins are greater, meaning it's minus 150 plus 110, not minus 150 plus 140. You know what I mean? So sometimes, depending on which way you think the market's going to go, it's sometimes better to wait. Here's one where I think Yahya's going to get the money. And the later we go in the week, the more I think the margin's going to shrink. So that's why my guys that are watching this, like, what do you mean you bet it? You didn't even give it to us yet. You're going to get it. You're getting it. Don't worry. You will be getting it. Because I'm betting Ray Rodriguez. And the reason's simple. Ooh. Price is everything here, man. Like you said, 4-inch reach advantage. I got the younger guys going back to bantamweight here. He's beating UFC competition. He beat Jimmy Flick, right, in the second round.
I guess that's true.
We're getting a little extra value here because of that Kelleher loss. I mean, it's already written that that's exactly what's going to happen here. And I always say it holds true in the fight game and in team sports. No team is ever as good or as bad as they look on any one given night, and no fighter is ever as good or as bad as they look on any one given night. And more times than not, the market remembers what it saw last. It has to price that in, and it's mispriced. Now, that doesn't guarantee me winning a bet. What that guarantees me is getting the best of it. And doing that over and over and over and over again, by the end of the year, I'll be up money. Now, you say, how do you know that? Because I did it last year, the year before that, the year before that, the year before that, the year before that. Again, this ain't to tout myself. It's to say that's the only way I know how to do it. I don't sweat the result. I swear I don't. I love watching UFC and MMA. I don't other sports. Again, I bet MLB today, NHL today, and college basketball. And I swear to you, I will not watch a single game or a single sport of any of them. I won't know a single result till tomorrow at all. I won't. For what purpose? I have 16 plays. What am I going to watch one game on TV? That could be winning and the other 16 losing. It makes no sense. Why would I waste my time like that? And I've been doing it for so long. I've won a game and lost a game every possible way. And I'm so disciplined with my bankroll. No game ever matters, or week or month or even year is going to be so significant. So it sucks. Honestly, when I'm at the sports book and I see guys jumping up and down, whether it's for a $5 bet or a 50,000 bet, I envy them, dude. I'm so jealous of them. I tell my wife that all the time. I wish I could get that back. The only time I feel that, and I thank the UFC, is when because of our show, you know, I feel like I'm putting my picks out there because with UFC on the line, they give us a bankroll and we bet it. And I said, the only reason I'm here, listen, I'm not an MMA historian. I'm not an analyst. The only reason I'm here is because I am long-term profitable betting MMA. I'm not going to enlighten anyone on anything about mixed martial arts, but if you're trying to make money betting it, I'm your guy. And it's been now first season profitable, second season I was profitable. I'm going to do it again this season. So that's just how I do it. And again, it's not being cocky, but I'm not going to sweat the fact that probably a plus 300 is going to lose. Ray Rodriguez, you're not supposed, plus 250s aren't expected to win. You're not going to win half of them. You're not going to win, 40% of those. You got to know that going in. If you're not okay with that, don't place those kind of bets. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with losing 5 out of 7 bets if I'm getting 6 out of 7 odds. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem with that. Give me plus 1,000 and let me lose 8 straight bets at, minus 110. So for me, that's all it comes down to. So I'm on the dog here. I think the value's there. I think you should wait to get even better plus money. It's plus EV now from plus 250, which I'm seeing on screens, plus 260s even. It's good enough to bet. At plus 200, it's a bet. It's plus EV. Anything above that's plus EV. But yeah, give me Ray Rodriguez, baby. Give me Ray Rodriguez.
We got a big underdog call.
Late notice here too for I see Yahya. Come on now.
So I was going to tell you, Johnny, the only thing that I was looking at on this one, because I think it's a Rani Yahya spot, but what I
like scare me. You worry me.
No. You're going to like this. I like to get a little crazy. The one thing I noticed was in Rani Yahya's last fight, he slowed down drastically in the 3rd round after not being able to handle Enrique Barzola. That was just that little tip of the iceberg, that crack of showing maybe that age is finally getting in there, getting to him. And
one fight a year, one fight in 2019, one fight in 2020. It's a lot of there's some negatives there. And again, big line.
What I like to do, Johnny, I like to pick on people that can't survive the 3rd round. I might take a stab at Ray Rodriguez in round 3 because if he can just keep this fight on the feet, if he can survive the grappling, if he can extend it late, then he's going to be the bigger, stronger man. He's going to hit harder. He's going to have more gas in the tank. And I know, again, I'm pulling my crystal ball out a little bit, but I've hit more than one of those already this year.
I do some live betting, and with live betting, you have to. I mean, a lot of it comes to what the price is, and if you pre-bet it, pre-flop or post-flop, some of that factors in. But yeah, you guys, there's nothing wrong with that. I do it too, man. Believe me, I play psychic too. We all do. We try to cut it out as much as possible and trust you know what I mean? Because I have an opinion too, bro. I mean, like I said, the Super Bowl comes around, March Madness comes around. I'm not in this by accident. Like,
you gotta
I'm a sports fan. I have a little gamble in me. You're not in this by accident. I got to fight those demons every day, like everybody else, to not bet more than I should, to not chase, to maybe this isn't worth a bet. Maybe I am just betting for action. Maybe, you know what I mean? It don't matter how long you've done it or how profitable you become. Your ROI could always be higher, because you should be learning with every win and loss. Like, you're never going to be, none of us are ever going to be so efficient that we're dead on. Like, I'm going to be wrong a lot. That's why I tell people, please disagree with me. Like, you should. You'd be crazy if you didn't. But like, and if you want to be disrespectful, that's on you. But like, at least teach me something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I always tell people, like, even like with now the crypto's the craze. Well, if I'm wrong, tell me why. Like, everyone says, like, give me the solution then. If it isn't, don't just tell me it's a Ponzi scheme. Tell me why. Or don't tell me I'm wrong with Ray Rodriguez. Tell me why. Say, Rani Yahya, pop. That, I could learn something, dude. Like, I love that. That's the kind of community I like,
Sure.
and the kind of feedback on social media and stuff. Otherwise, it's a waste of time, dude. Anyone could troll and bash. That don't take much creativity and shit,
Not even a little. Not even a little. But so I kind of feel you there. I like your dog call there on Ray Rodriguez. I lean Rani Yahya, but if Ray gets it extended, I think he can finish this thing late. And like I said, that might be I like to do those round 3 props. They usually come in at 10-1 or higher with him being such a big underdog. You got to feel like that's going to be 20-1, 18-1 at the worst. So that's probably going to be a nice little snipe spot that I try to shoot on Saturday.
I like it.
Moving right along here, we've got 2 fights back-to-back, which we're going to have to put a pin in. Nasrat Haqparast versus Don Madge. That was going to be a really fun fight, but it looks like Madge is pulled out due to injury. So Nasrat, they're trying to find him an opponent. And then same thing at featherweight with Ricardo Ramos and Zabir Tuhugov. Tuhugov withdrew due to an injury as well. So we're just going to...
Sorry, we were at UFC last week to do UFC on the line.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a social hit for this week's fights where we give a pick, me and Nick. And that was going to be the pick I wanted to give out as the dog. Ramos, I was going to give out as a big dog. Anyway, that was let known it wasn't going to go down. So I gave out, I had to go with another pick. I like that fight too.
That was a good fight. That was going to be a fun fight, and they're going to get him some short notice bum, and he's going to be a minus 500 now. So that one's out the window. Basically, we're jumping straight to the final fight on the preliminary card. We've got Courtney Casey taking on JJ Aldrich, women's flyweight fight. This one should be fun. Casey is 9-8-0, almost a 500 fighter. We've got JJ, who's 8-4. So another spot where Casey, rough run, but got the experience. JJ, a little bit of a better record. Courtney, she's a fighter that I'm not a huge fan of, Gianni, because she always ends up on her back. The problem, though, in women's MMA is you always get that damn armbar from guard. Someone always manages to snatch an arm from their back. The thing that's a red flag for me, though, is she apparently is dating Jakar Close, who's kind of a Ronin right now. He's kind of lost his way. He's traveling all over the place in AZ. He's left every single gym, had problems with every single coach, and that's her main training partner, is this guy who's kind of lost himself. So I can't expect much from what her current form is going to be when compared to maybe some of her previous form where she had an actual home gym, an actual head coach, actual good training partners. JJ Aldrich, I think, is a fighter who's very underrated. She's a tough, durable striker, and she's got really sharp boxing. Nice hands, good footwork. She circles well. She's always cutting angles. And if you go back to when she fought Macy Barber, she was piecing Macy Barber up. Now, we've learned that Barber's striking isn't necessarily what we all thought it was cracked up to be, but she was putting on a clinic right up until she got hit with a big bomb. And that's the kind of bomb that you're just not going to get from Courtney Casey. We got JJ as a minus 150 favorite at this point. She was about minus 135, I think, last night. And I wanted to talk to you about this one before I pulled any triggers. Kind of regretting it a little bit now because I like the JJ Aldrich side of things. And then you got plus 130 on the other side with Courtney Casey. Do you have any leans on this one here, Gianni?
Yeah, and you got to be really careful. If you're a handicapper that uses line moves as a big part of your determination of picks, be very cautious. Drawing conclusions in MMA, there's a lot of manipulation. I mean, more manipulation than many other sports.
Sure. And
then you couple that with, we all know, one of the bigger, offshore books that creates their own market, bets the games too, bets the fights also. So they know other books copy their lines off air, so they manipulate the market themselves and get the whole market to move one direction. If you know where I'm going with
then
this,
they hit it the other way.
and it's a sports book book. Yeah, we all, anyone that's in the offshore market understands what I'm talking about. So be careful drawing conclusions off line moves. Like this one opened 165, got dummied down to 130 and been bet up since. It's that dummy down that you shouldn't have believed.
I agree with the opener. I feel like we're getting line value here on JJ.
Yeah, you are. Listen, and that's why that fake pump came, because Courtney Casey's been one that's been overvalued by the market. Don't forget, she opened the minus 120 favorite against Waterson. she was a plus 120 dog opened against Hill. Like, she hasn't been like this big dog. And yet she's 5-7 in the UFC. She's lost 2 of her last 3, 5 of her last 8. I couldn't agree with you more. The negative with Aldrich, she comes off a loss as a favorite. You know what I mean? And now backing her in that role again, off a layoff too. Again, 130 better than 150. Their analytics are pretty similar if you look at them. I agree with you. I like the Aldrich side here. I think it's favorite or pass, which is rare in women's MMA. But for me, it is. I think it's JJ Aldrich or leave the fight alone. Again, like I said, Cortney Casey's been overvalued by the betting market, and it's not like you've been rewarded for it.
Yeah.
So I don't see backing her as a small dog here. A lot of upside. I just don't see it.
All right, I like it. One that I was a little wishy-washy on. I'm gonna have to decide tonight if I want to get down or not, because I don't want to pay minus 160, minus 170. The higher that line goes, the more I'm going to want to pass on it. So if I decide to lock it in, everybody head on over to Twitter, give me a follow. I'll tweet it out tonight.
You may wait because, you know, the saying, women's MMA, bet the dog in lower level MMA. That's what everybody says and shit. If it's, you know, in women's MMA. So that trend may continue. And if dog money comes in, you may get Aldrich back at a smaller price. But because it was sharp money, that probably not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to chase it when it's all gone.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that was the undercard, folks. We're heading on over to the main card. Do me a favor, first and foremost, smash the like. Give us a like here on the show. I'm joined by Gianni the Greek. This is odds.com. We are breaking down UFC Vegas 21 from a betting perspective. We've got 356 live viewers today. Thank you all so much for spending your Monday nights with us, and we've got a fight that I am extremely interested in. Open us up here, Gianni. I'm going to kick this one to you sooner than later because I want to come in at the end after you say your piece. Middleweight fight here. Eryk, ya boy Anders, 13-5, taking on Darren the Dentist Stewart, who is 12-6. Eryk Anders is a guy who they really pushed, big-time athlete, big dude, athletic, hard-hitting, but he just never quite got there. He never evolved as a fighter. His game never changed, and he became very, very easy to game plan for and started taking some L's that maybe he shouldn't after fighting guys like Lyoto Machida. Like, he was headed the right direction, and then he just tanked and went the wrong way. Darren Stewart, a guy who's been kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here at the division, finally got a big step up, really impressed against Kevin Holland. He's coming off a couple wins back-to-back, choked out, coconut bombs, you know, a current UFC fan favorite type of guy. And now he's instilled as a big favorite here in this fight. We've got Darren Stewart all the way up to minus 200 in some places, minus 190, minus 185. The comeback on your boy, he's anywhere from plus 155 to plus 165. What's your take here on this one, Gianni?
I'll tell you, you got two middleweights that below middleweight average finishers, number one. And that's why this one's favored to go to distance, the 2.5 over minus 125. But you're starting to see money come in on the no. The yes was minus 165, now down to minus 125. So you're seeing some money come in against the trend of both these guys. What does that tell me? I lean to the Darren Stewart side. The problem is the price. Two opposite trajectories is what the data shows. And here's what I mean. Two guys that similar records, 13-5 as a pro, 12-6 as a pro, both 18 pro fights. One's 5-5 in the UFC, the other's 5-5 in the UFC. Both 10 pro fights in the UFC, both 500 fighters in the UFC. Here's the big difference that the data at least shows. And you nailed it. Early on is when Eryk Anders had his success. He started 3-1, where Darren Stewart started 0-3. Stewart's evolving. His trajectory is going positive, and Anders has been going negative. And to me, I just don't see enough line value to look at the dog when he's not a finisher, fades late, and even with this line, at least the prop on the total rounds whether it'll go to distance or not, showing the no. I lean the Stewart side. I just don't. I don't know if I could justify laying that price. You know what I mean? That he should be a minus 220, 240 favorite. Because when he did get the minus 225, you saw resistance. Mm-hmm. You did see sharp money come in and bet the underdog. And I don't think that was, I don't know if it was plus EV, but I don't think it's that off either. Because even if it does go to the judges' scorecards, now it's a middleweight bout that went to the judges, and you're laying close to minus 200 for that privilege. I just don't see it. So to me, it's a stay away. If I have to pick the winner, I'm going to pick Stewart. He's the favorite. The market says minus 185. He should win 65% of the time. I'm not going to buck that. I agree with it, but I don't think there's betting value there.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be on an island on this one, Gianni. I took a shot on Eryk Anders, and
Good for you.
I'm taking a 2-unit stab here, so it's a bigger bet than normal here for me. So what I've been banging on about with Eryk Anders, if anybody who follows me, if anybody who's tuned into this podcast before knows, all we do is fade this guy. I've bet against him at every opportunity possible because he simply does not evolve. He squeezed away from us with a split decision win, which I feel like he may have lost against Gerald Meerschaert just a couple fights ago, and then he lost again against Krzysztof Jotko. He has finally done what I've been begging him to do this entire time, Gianni. He moved out to Fight Ready. If those of you who know, Fight Ready is the camp that really took Cejudo to the next level. This guy finally is going out to train with champion caliber training partners. He's getting out of his small pond where he's the big dog, where he can just bully anybody around. And he's training with world-class coaches that'll have a game plan for him. A gym that has proven to take fighters physically to the next level. And I think they'll really be able to harness his athletic ability that's kind of just faded away over his last couple fights because he's gotten away from using it. So that's the sign to me.
Do you think it's possible still? Because he's a freak athlete, obviously. We know that pre-UFC. You don't play for Alabama by accident. You know
exactly.
What I mean? Like there's so many Division I schools and the best in the world on the whole planet not to get to go to Alabama to play football. You know what I mean? If you're on the bench in Alabama, you could probably start pretty much anywhere else.
Exactly.
So if anything, but has he taken too much punishment, you think, with football, with MMA to continue evolving, or no? I don't know. I'm asking.
So I don't personally think that he has. I mean, you look at his fights, and the majority of them have been relatively low volume. He's not one of these guys. He's not Dustin Poirier getting hit with 115 significant strikes every single fight. He's dealing with 40 significant strikes. He's dealing with 60 significant strikes. He knocks a dude out in the first round. He only got hit twice. Like, you know what I mean? He doesn't have as much wear and tear, and I think he's just been floating on his raw athleticism here. And the other thing, Gianni, is honestly, I don't think Darren Stewart is all that. And I know you mentioned it's a trajectory thing, but he back in 2020 got completely mauled by Bartosz Fabinski, who's a guy who at this point in his career, I don't think is UFC caliber. He's also a guy that was a weight class below that came in as a huge underdog and took out Darren Stewart. Darren Stewart's wins, let me go through this. Eric Spicely, a guy that's been cut by the UFC twice. Charles Byrd, a guy with no chin, whom he knocked out, that is no longer with the UFC. Bevon Lewis, maybe the biggest bust of a prospect that we've had over the last couple of years. Jourdain win a split decision, which he probably lost, against a guy who is barely hanging on to his job in the UFC. And then Maki Pitolo, a guy who belongs a weight class down, who is knockout or bust, and hasn't shown any improvements except for his last fight. He's got no credible wins in the UFC, and here he is a minus 200 favorite. I think that this should be a coin flip. Eryk Anders is bigger. He's got a reach advantage. He's fought the higher level of competition. As I mentioned before, he went toe-to-toe with Thiago Santos. He fought Lyoto Machida. He fought Gerald Meerschaert, Khalil Roundtree. Like, even though these guys, like some of those names are championship caliber, and the other ones, even though they aren't, are UFC veterans. I think there's a huge gap here, and I think he's way overlooked as an underdog. I'm all in on your boy this week.
Wow. Good for you, man. Listen, I can tell you that the two models we ran, both would support the Anders side as far as price. Both show Stewart winning around 55% of the time. He shouldn't even be minus 150. Right around there is what the line should be. But the only reason, based on the models, I should be on the Anders side. The only reason I'm not is because that trajectory and that net, like if it was a higher plus, I would probably take that side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But good bet, man. Good for you. Good bet.
And like, I love being on an island, Johnny. I feel like I do the best when I'm the only one.
You're going to be on an island for sure. For sure.
Well, and I want to point out
he's going to be on so
guy.
many parlays because as long as if he stays under 200, he's going to be on so many parlays.
Absolutely. And Tom, I want to acknowledge this here, asking whether or not he's motivated. The gym change is the key. The gym change is the key. If he wasn't motivated to improve, he'd stay where he was. He'd stay with his home gym. He'd be the big dog. He'd collect a couple more UFC paychecks. He wouldn't bother changing anything up. He wouldn't bother working hard or learning or getting adjusted to a new coach. That's the whole crux of my argument here. If Eryk Anders had not moved, this fight would be a complete pass and a stay away for me because I would lean with the favorite and want to pass, but I'm seeing exactly what I need to see from Anders, and that's enough to push me over to the edge on a fight that I feel like at worst should be 50-50.
I won't go against you, brother. I won't fade it. I'm not fading it. I won't fade it. For me, it'll be that. It's like if you've got to pick the winner, the favorite probably should win. You know what I mean? But like I said, I wouldn't bet Stewart. No way. It would be Anders or pass if you have to bet it.
I feel like this. I feel like this is almost a trap line, Gianni. I know we don't see those that often in MMA.
Books are going to be on your side for sure. Like that could wipe out a ton of parlay. As a bookmaker, that'll be a parlay killer for sure.
Absolutely.
It's under that minus 200. For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be in everything. All right. So I'm pumped up about that one. That's one of the few bets I've already pulled the trigger on this week. Y'all know where my money's at. I put it where my mouth is. And ride or die, I'll sit here next week and let you know how I did. Yep. Next up, we got a flyweight fight. We got Manel Kape taking on Matheus Nicolau, which is a name that we haven't heard in a long time. Nicolau, let's start with him. He was actually a Ultimate Fighter Brazil competitor, and he made it to the UFC. He had no fights in 2020, though. He's coming off a bit of a layoff. He's 15-3. He trains out of Nova União. He's a black belt, which Nova União kind of became the laughingstock of the MMA game for a while, but they're experiencing a bit of a resurgence here in the last year or two with a couple of up-and-coming contenders here. He's a fighter that likes to spam hard leg kicks. That's something that I've seen. He's able to take people's mobility away, chop them down, but he's always moving backwards, Gianni. This guy gives up the center of the cage. He walks his back away to the fence, and then he blitzes in forward trying to catch you off guard. But he does it every single fight that he's in. So I feel like it's going to be a bit readable here for a guy like Manel. He relies on his chin. He's extremely hittable, has his hands down, and you can't do that in this spot, in my opinion. Manel is coming off of his first UFC, his UFC debut. He lost to Pantoja in a spot that I felt like was just a home run. You've got this guy coming over from Risen, who's riding high off of a couple of wins outside the UFC, and they gave us a pick'em against Pantoja, for God's sake. That was such a good spot to back a UFC championship caliber fighter, but Kape is doing the quick turnaround. He's trying to rinse that taste out of his mouth. You know, he got handled by a guy that was able to just methodically piece him apart. He wasn't ready for that. Now this is the level he should have come in. You know, Nicolau hasn't been in the UFC for a long time, but he's coming in making his debut against Kape here. And I think this is a great spot for Kape. I sniped the opening line at minus 125. I'm risking 2.5 units to win too. That did get steamed up. He's already minus 145, minus 150. But I think stylistically, this is a much better fight for Kape. And I also think that the UFC is not going to sell that quickly on a hot prospect from a company like Risen in his second fight. I think they're giving him a good stylistic matchup, a winnable fight, a bounce back spot, so he can kind of recapture some of that hype he had when he came in for the first time in the UFC. What do you think about this one?
I got to tell you, man, I disagree here. Yeah, and I haven't fired yet, but if this line continues to climb And I mean, even right now, I see minus 150 somewhere. Obviously, the margin, again, they're large, minus 150 plus 120. Now, if it was minus 150 plus 140, that 10-cent line, I would bet it. At plus 140, I got to win 4 out of 10 times. Break even, what's 42%? I like it. And here's why. If I'm going off the data pre-layoff, that's the negative here, that you're going off what he did pre-layoff. And you have, how could I put it? It doesn't have the best track record. That's where I lack the confidence. And that's why if this line continues to climb, I'll bet him. And I don't know how big of a play I'd make it because of that negative of the data being older. But it's as impressive as it comes, man. I mean, almost 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, 66% accuracy, 100% takedown defense, averages almost 4 significant strikes per minute, 70% defensive against significant strikes. I mean, those analytics are off the charts, and it wasn't against the lowest level of competition. On the flip side, I think with Manel, you're really betting potential over credentials. Sure, impressive at Ryzen. He came in UFC, lost. Now a quick turnaround, I don't see that as a positive. I would want to see, give me 6 months, 8 months, 12 months even. Get back in there, redo some things. Not, it was a mistake. I slipped on a banana peel. I'm better than that. Maybe, I don't know. To me, that's ego more than anything else. Again, I think I'd be betting potential. I mean, credentials over potential with Nicolau compared to potential, and I may be wrong. And again, the layoffs, what worries me, but I think the record's there. Kid's got only 3 losses. He's got 15 wins as a pro, 3 of them in the UFC. Again, the layoffs negative. I can't say anything about that. But other than that, man, last 2 times the kid fought, came out victorious, and you're going to give me him as an underdog. Not the worst bet I've ever seen.
Okay. So we always love that disagreement here with the guest Gianni the Greek. He likes the dog in this spot.
And late notice for Manel too, right?
I mean, a little bit. He's in hella good shape, though. Let me tell you. I think he got pissed off. I think he went straight back to the gym because, I mean, let's be real. He didn't get hurt in that fight with Pantoja. That was
no.
That was
a 15-minute sparring match. Yeah.
So he went right back to work. He's in damn good shape. I always make sure I stalk these people on Instagram to find out what kind of shape they're in before I pull that kind of a trigger. And he's ready to rock. And that's where I'm going to go with the motivation here. I mean, you might be right. Nicolau, he does not have a bad record. So just because we haven't seen him for a while doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad fighter. But he's only got 2 losses, and both of those were by knockout. And that's where Manel is fast, man. If this kid tries to drop his hands and rely on that chin against Kape, I think he's going to sleep.
Here's what supports your bet too. If you've seen the sharp money has come in that this will not go to distance, and that's rare for flyweights. 4 out of 10 times it doesn't go to distance. 6 out of 10 times the judges get involved, and yet the yes was favored minus 125. Now the no's a minus 130. So you went from, the market thinking 46%, now thinking, 44%, now thinking 56%. Like, that's a jump, man. That's some movement for flyweights, especially for flyweights. You rarely see that. So yeah, that supports your backing of the favorite, and the line's definitely moving in your direction. But I like the dog, man.
I feel you.
I'm a sucker for the dogs.
Well, and that's that under may not be a bad look, Gianni, because the only 2 losses by finish that Manel has had have come by submission, and that's prime positioning for a high-level Novo and Yao black belt like Matheus. So we could have a war on our hands, man. That under 2.5 is minus 110, minus 115. So maybe a violence bet in play here for Saturday too.
Okay.
I love betting on the violence, man. That's where it's at. All right. So we're going to move this thing along. I got to give a shout out to my other sponsor here, Goat Capital Sports. Make sure you check them out on Twitter at GoatCapital_. They take care of basically everything else that I can't provide for you. They do baseball, basketball, golf, soccer, everything. And they're giving out picks daily at a very, very good, solid price. Make sure you check them out. Let them know I sent you. They're good guys over there. They do good stuff. Women's strawweight fight here. Angela Hill taking on Ashley Yoder. And Gianni, I got to tell you, I'm tired of talking about this one. This has been rebooked and scooted back 4 times. We've broken it down front to back as many times as we can possibly talk about, and I'm over it. I think Angela Hill wins this fight, but the line is way too wide. I'm not betting it.
I'm betting Ashley Yoder.
Woo!
I'm on the Yoder side. Yeah, I'm on the Yoder side. And listen, they're probably like, look, this guy bets every dog. No, I don't bet every dog. And when we get to the end,
that's what they say about me.
I'll go through and I'll tell you the bets I like the most. So there's no confusion. I don't like sitting on the fence. I mean, who wants to watch a show about sports betting and you're not going to tell them what bets you like? So you ain't going to be I don't sit on the fence. You don't have to worry about that. I'll tell you what I'm betting when we're done. But we're going to go through every fight for sure. Here's why I like the Yoder side. Number one, a couple of the signals I look at. She's got a height advantage of 4 inches. She's got a reach advantage of 5 inches. That 5 inches has statistical significance. 3 years younger. Angela Hill is now 36, getting up there in age.
Yep.
More importantly, Angela Hill's been overvalued. Here's what I mean. She's 6-7 in the UFC. She's had 13 UFC fights. She's been favored 10 times. She's not profitable as a favorite when you're 6-7. When you're below 500, but you've been favored 80+% of the time, you're not profitable in that spot. And now you're laying 350, close to 400. So what? You conclude she wins this fight 9 out of 10 times? I'm sorry. Her track record just doesn't support it. Now, on the flip side, Yoder, sure, she doesn't have a winning record in the UFC. She's 3-5. At plus 300, that's profitable. She's been a dog every time out. That's the difference. And I said that from the beginning. If you're not comfortable throwing out, 6 out of every 10 tickets, but still turning a profit, then stay away from dogs and just pick those coin flip minus 110, 125 favorites and good luck with it. But if you're going to bet dogs, you got to know you're going to throw 6 tickets away and still make money if the price is right. And I'm comfortable doing that. And again, I think Ashley Yoder sets up nicely as a good bet. May not win. Obviously, plus 300s don't win often. That's why they're plus 300. But the analytics support it as well. And there's the path to victory. You look in the career for Angela Hill, minus 10 in takedowns. That's how you beat her. And I look at Ashley Yoder, that shows me she's plus 4 in takedowns in her UFC career. So there is that path to victory. It's not like she can't beat her anywhere. Mm-hmm. Give me the plus money with Ashley Yoder. Again, not a bet you expect to cash. But I do think I'm getting the best of it, and it's plus EV, and that's good enough for me.
Gianni, I got to shout out the chat here. One of our guys said that a big difference in this fight, which honestly I didn't even think about, is that the first fight was short notice. And I feel like the training time favors Yoder.
Point.
I feel like the line is the exact same. They didn't move it. It didn't budge. I feel like the extra training time, getting in shape, being in a better spot for this fight, I feel like that favors Yoder, and they didn't give it any credibility on the betting line. That's something that I didn't even consider.
Yeah, I'm telling you, again, Angela Hill, she should win this fight. That's why she's the favorite. Favorites often do. You shouldn't be surprised when they do.
Absolutely.
But how big of a favorite should she be? And again, at minus 350, we're saying 78% is the break even. So she's going to win this fight 85% of the time? I don't think so. At least her UFC record hasn't shown that ability. Again, she's had some split decisions that didn't go her way. But there's a randomness in a lot of those decisions that did go her way, even whether they're unanimous or not.
All the damn time.
Exactly. And even the unanimous ones, how many unanimous ones have been way off? It's not as if because it's unanimous, they got it right. I mean, we can't just assume that, we're yelling at the TV all the time. So I could see if they were, I could see if they were by a bunch of finishes. But again, a lot of her wins were probably as questionable as the split decision losses. If you could argue those, I could argue the wins as well. So, I mean, that's just how I look at it. So if you're going to be a minus 350 favorite, you need to bring it. I mean, you need to walk across the ring, across the octagon. I was looking at boxing anyway. And finish it. Like get in there. A minus 350, 400 favorite. I shouldn't have to wait 15 minutes. I shouldn't have to hold my breath for the judges. Yeah. If I'm gonna have 80% certainty break even, let's say, 85, 90% certainty to be worth my bet, then I better not be sitting around 15 minutes. I could find more sure things somewhere on the board than that. And again, that's what you got to remember. If you're putting your money out there, you need to protect it. Put it in the best positions, the one that gives you the greatest edge. One of your biggest advantages over the bookmaker is you have the ability to choose. He has to put up a line. They have to take a bet, or else people will walk across the street to the other bookmaker and place it there. Now you lost the customer. So they have to book it. You could sit back and just pick them away. Unlike advantage blackjack players, they don't have that ability. You can't just jump in those plus EV situations. You can't just
pick up and walk home.
Exactly. So it's a little bit different. And that's why, with sports, be selective, man. Even if you think she's going to win, but you're like, she should probably be minus 400. Not much line value, but she's going to win this fight. So I'm going to use her anyway. That shouldn't be reason enough. I'm telling you, don't bet. Stay away from those kind of bets. The ones that you're like, oh, she's minus 150. Oh, she should win this fight 7, 8 out of 10 times. Those are the ones you want to unload on, man. I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
Approach it like that. Your long-term, your results are going to be so much better. If you're not profitable, I promise you at least lose less. And a lot of times, that's just as valuable.
Just as important.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop the
Remember, when investing, I always say Warren Buffett has one rule: don't lose money. Rule number 2: don't lose money. That's the goal. That's all you have. That's your bankroll is your ammunition. When you run out of it, your capital's done. So you need to put it in the best growth positions. I mean, look at what he did this year. He couldn't find any investments worth his money. So what did he do? He rebought stock of his own company. He said, I'm the best investment out there. So I'm going to buy 50 billion or whatever of my own stock.
That's a boss move.
There's no company out there that is going to appreciate more than mine over the next, this period. That's a boss move. Exactly. You know what I mean? So again, that's how we need to approach it if we're doing it for profit. If you're doing it for entertainment, tell me to shut up and hit those 7-fighter parlays, brother. Hit those parlays.
All right. And you know what, Gianni, I got to take a little sidestep here. Normally, I don't feed the trolls, but my guy OG Johnson's not a troll. He's just celebrating a win, so it's okay. It's okay.
Bring it, please. I respect.
No, he's coming after me. He's not coming after you. So I talk some serious shit on Rakic. I am not sold on Rakic. And my boy Johnson coming in here cashing tickets. Congratulations on your win, OG. You got the money. But I'll tell you what, he didn't show me shit. That was one of the worst Thiago Santoses I have ever seen in my life. And he squeezed out a very uncomfortable decision over a fighter that he was supposed to destroy as a favorite. A guy he was supposed to blow the brakes off of. I'm still not sold on Rakic. You give me a good 205er. You give me a healthy, modern-day 205er, and I'm going to fade the shit out of him. So I know you're enjoying your win. You can have your moment, but I still haven't seen shit.
Thiago looked every bit of 37, though.
He did.
Every bit of 37.
He looked awful, and he still could have won that fight. If he had given just one little inch of more effort, that was a 1-1 fight going into the third. He still damn near won the thing. All right. Well, I like that fun. So moving along, we've got a featherweight fight. Dan Ige taking on Gavin Tucker. Maybe the most interesting fight on the entire card for me, Gianni. This is a good one. This is a really good one. Dan Ige, 14-3. Gavin Tucker, 13-1. Dan's training out of Extreme Couture with guys like Islam Makhachev. We just saw how damn good that guy is. Khabib 2.0 here in the lightweight division. This guy's got sharp boxing, a quick, snappy jab. He rips the body of his opponents. He's a strong grappler as well, even though people kind of forget he's fully capable of that. He's got a great gas tank. And at featherweight, he's been excellent. In this case, he's finally going to be the bigger guy. He's another one of these guys, kind of like Frankie Edgar a couple of months back. You finally get the chance to have the height and the reach advantage. The table's completely turned. He was outsized by Calvin Kattar, and he was in that fight. He hit Calvin Kattar with some shit. Gavin Tucker, though, he's looked every bit like a prospect that can make a run at the title. Great gas tank. He's a tank. He's a short, squat, muscle-bound, just machine in there. Sharp boxing, sneaky head kick, big clinch knees. He controls his opponent's posture, pins them up against the fence. Really strong grappling, heavy top control. It's kind of like if you hit Sean Brady with a shrink ray. Like, this guy just mauls people on the floor. And he's got a great gas tank too. He pushes a high pace. The only problem for me is this is a massive step up in competition for Gavin Tucker. He has looked excellent so far in his UFC, but he's beaten only guys that are at that mid to low tier. And now he's fighting Dan Ige, a guy that went to war with Calvin Kattar, a guy that went to war with Edson Barboza. This is a spot where, generally speaking, I'm tempted to fade the fighter stepping up in competition because it's not often you succeed with that first big jump. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 attempts. We've got Dan Ige minus 125, minus 130. Gavin Tucker's about a plus 100, plus 110 underdog here. And this feels like a buy low spot on Dan Ige to me, but I haven't made a move yet, Gianni. How do you feel about this one?
I'm going to tell you, I like the Gavin Tucker side. It's a bet.
Okay.
In fact, this is the play I used last week when we had to give out for this week.
Oh, there you go.
I thought it was a coin flip fight. I really did. And at that time, Ige was minus 165. He's since dropped, but I still think as long as you get plus money, Gavin Tucker's the right side. And I will rarely go against a fighter like Ige, who not just what he's done, meaning the amount of wins he has at the UFC level, but he's going to have a reach advantage, significant here, 5 inches, like you touched on. He's 5 years younger, 5 years younger. That matters at that age that they're at. Rarely am I going to fade those unless the plus money is very attractive. But the reason I like the Gavin Tucker side here even more and would still bet it, like I said, as long as it's plus, is I think this one goes the distance. At least that's what our model shows. And the line, at least heavily favored to go over 2.5. And it's the volume of Gavin Tucker that I think is going to be the difference maker. That landing more volume striking and those takedowns, if he's able to land them, able to do more. And with Ige, with 59% takedown defense, that's a possibility. Also, Ige coming off arguably the biggest fight of his career with Calvin Kattar, the implications winning that fight would have.
Absolutely. And
now coming, bouncing right back against a Gavin Tucker again, it's asking a lot. In the favorite spot, I don't like it, and it's tough. You see, it's tough for me to say because I've backed Ige in the past with great results. He's been money.
He has been
throughout, and fighters like that, I rarely want to fade because they're not overvalued. I mean, look, I don't think he's ever been more than a minus 175, 180 favorite in the last few years. I mean, maybe against Mike Santiago, you know what I mean? That was it. Otherwise, he's been a fair price. You've been able to make money with Ige. But I just think Gavin Tucker in the underdog spot, again, it's just simple case of getting plus money on a coin flip, and I can't pass it up. Okay.
All right. I can definitely respect the take. I feel it. And that's why, honestly, this is one that's got me a little spooked, Gianni. There's 2 fights last card that I bit on the favorite in this exact same spot where I said, this guy should be a bigger favorite. It's their opponent stepping up to fight them. Song Yadong was a spot that I really liked last week, and it was because his opponent was unproven. But we're seeing kind of a wave of these kids stepping up, and they're making that jump. You know, that angle has not been working for me the last little bit here. Now, long term, it'll probably pick back up and it'll start working again. But right now, I'm honestly just a little bit gun shy. So I don't know. This one might be a pass for me. This entire card, honestly, everybody, be extremely careful. This is a treacherous card. There's a couple of trappy spots. There's some low-level fights going on here. This is not the best card for betting, in my opinion, so we're going to give you what we can. But be very, very careful. Johnny Lykin, Gavin Tucker here, which there's nothing to not like. That's kind of the problem for me. There's stuff to like on both sides, and it's a very, very enticing line. You could justify either way you want to go on this.
Yeah, you could argue both sides. Yeah, you got a 13-1 against 14-3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's the guy's got 11 wins between them in the UFC and only 3 losses. You could argue both sides.
Absolutely. All right. So for me, that one's going to be a pass. I'm going to lean to Ige. Johnny likes the Gavin Tucker side. And the next fight is one where got to give a shout out to my dad, Big Ben Rothwell, stepping back in the cage.
That's awesome.
People always say I look like Big Ben Rothwell and Anthony Smith had a baby. So those are the two guys I always like to shout out anytime they're fighting on the weekends. So Johnny, I went full triple C Cejudo cringe. I tweeted Big Ben Rothwell a picture of myself, and I said, at Big Ben Rothwell, go dad. And he just sent the face palm emoji.
I love it.
It was pretty good. Big Ben, he's been around forever, man. This guy, UFC staple. Back in the day, looked like he was really going places. Got popped by USADA and hasn't looked the same ever since. Big power. When he's motivated, when he wants to hit something, he's still got it. But he's low volume, he's low output, doesn't always have the highest fight IQ. And that's my biggest problem is it's right there, Gianni. If he came out and he went hard, he'd win a lot of these fights. But he just gets lulled into these decisions. And he really fights to the level of his competition. And that sucks. Because you're always going to be relying, like you said, on the judges. You're going to go to a lot of splits. You're going to have a lot of close fights. And it's just because you're not stepping on the gas. He should win this fight, in my opinion. Philip Lins is a guy who is another bust for me. He's 14-5. So far in the UFC has looked absolutely awful. And I think that's because he was juiced to the gills over in the PFL, came to the UFC. Now he's dealing with USADA. He just isn't getting the same supplements he was on when he was in the PFL. He's not a striker that I'm impressed with by any stretch of the imagination, and he's been knocked out a couple times now that I think if Ben finds the button, he can put him away. But at the same time, this is a bad trajectory for Ben Rothwell. He's not a fighter I really feel like lining up behind right now. If I was gonna bet this fight, I would take Ben simply on the side of, UFC caliber, experience, bad opponent. It feels like kind of a layup spot for him. But at the same time, I've got one of these, just the prickles on the back of my neck for some reason. I feel like Philip Lins is a guy that the UFC is banked on, and maybe I got it backwards. Maybe they're not giving Ben a layup. Maybe they're giving Lins the boost he needs to get that first UFC W. So what do you feel like on this one? Man,
I wish that when they were averaging down this price, it didn't happen so quickly. Because I think you would have had to bet the dog at where it opened and as it was moving. And again, you're absolutely right. From what we've seen in the UFC, there isn't all that much to get attracted about with Philip Lins. But on the other side of that coin, you're looking at a Rothwell who is now 39 years old, who's 2-4 over his last 6, but more importantly, 5 of those 6 went to a decision in a weight class where a little over 73% of the time, the judges don't get involved. Yeah. That's worrisome any way you look at it. Lins, obviously, there was no value in the past. He closed as a favorite in his last 2 UFC fights. Now, though, that isn't the case. At least it wasn't until right now. I mean, there's so much randomness to heavyweights because, you could finish someone with one shot.
Absolutely.
Maybe not so in here, with these two. But again, you still can. They're heavyweights, obviously. The younger guys, faster hands, and Rothwell slowing down, a little plodding. I can't bet Ben is a favorite, man. I can't do it. If the line moves up, if you start seeing I think the public the market hasn't gotten involved. I think what happened was any early money sold that value in Linz as an underdog. And since then, since we have price discovery now at -110, I don't think it's a bet. You know what I mean? If you give me Linz as a dog, even plus 105, 110, I'd bet it. I really would, because I cannot justify Rothwell in the favorite spot. As a dog, yeah, I'll bet him too. Give me him at plus 110. I'll take him in this spot. But I can't.
Mine's headed that way.
There's nothing I could justify in laying a price with him. So for me, it's Linz or pass. And if I was able to get involved earlier, I would have actually. I think as an underdog, it's the only way I can look. There's actually the money coming in that this will not go to distance. The yes was favored. Now the no is -130. Is it due for a finish? Probably, in the heavyweights, at least after 5 or 6 decisions. But I like Linz or pass for me.
Okay. See, and that's where just a couple of other points I want to add there. For heavyweights, we see that longevity a little bit. They can last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
If Ben didn't look so bad in his last couple fights, I'd be all over it. Linz, he's 35. Like, he's not a young dude either. He's not another one of these guys, 28, 29. He's not even the 32s we were talking about. He's headed on the downslide of his own career. He's 35 years old. He's going to be smaller. He's going to be at a reach disadvantage. So I don't count much that youth advantage. I don't count that much here in this spot. But it does look like money's coming in on Linz. If you give me my dad at plus 110, maybe I'll take that dog shot there in that spot. He's been knocked out. Linz has been knocked out 4 times. The last one by Tanner Boser just last year. So, there's I don't know. This guy's one of my favorite fades. I'm just having a hard time lining up behind Ben to do it.
Okay, I can't disagree with you.
That's a tough fight. And
if
we got 2.
Dog.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see where this line goes. Let's see where this line goes.
Exactly.
Tentatively, I'm going to say Ben Rothwell. We'll see where the bet is later. Next fight up, co-main event time, light heavyweight fight, one that I'm pretty stoked on, actually. Misha Cirkunov, 15-5, taking on Ryan Superman Spann, who is 18-6. This fight has got me all kinds of twisted, Gianni. Misha is a killer. This is a killer be killed first round fighter. He comes out the gates like a bat out of hell, and he either destroys his opponent or he gets himself wrecked. He's training at Extreme Couture for the most part, but he did a tour out at City Kickboxing, apparently. He's coming off of a bit of a layoff, another one of these slightly older fighters where that layoff could be a good thing. Maybe his body is healed up a little bit. Could be a bad thing. Maybe he's got some injuries or something like that we're not super stoked on. But he's talking about getting back to his wrestling. He seems like a guy that kind of lost his way, fell in love with his striking, got knocked out a bunch of times, and then as soon as he goes back to the grappling, gets a win over Jimmy the Brute Crute, which is a big, big win these days. Jimmy's looked like he's absolutely legit, and he got handled on the mat by Misha Cirkunov. So a high-level submission artist, taking a big step down in competition, in my opinion. Ryan Spann is another one of these big heavyweight prospects, and I mean big like physically speaking. He's huge in there for 205. He's got a sneaky good guillotine. He looks like a knockout artist, but most of his wins are actually by submission. Big plodding dude on the feet, low output, but he explodes with big, big power. Problem is he's willing to accept that bottom position. He's got bad takedown defense, and he can gas out late. This is a guy that's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here, but he lost in a kickboxing fight to Sam Alvey at 205, which is a big, big red flag. The record says he won. I bet him that night, Gianni. He lost that fight.
Yeah, he didn't win. He didn't beat Alvey. No way.
He didn't beat Alvey. That was a bad decision. And I was holding...
It was the takedown that they gave it to him.
I was holding a Spann ticket, and I'm telling you right now, I got away with one that night. And this is a spot where Misha Cirkunov, Spann is getting a lot of love. A lot of people are looking to fade Misha Cirkunov. And it's another short favored or pass spot for me. I feel like Misha Cirkunov is the only side I could look at here. Minus 135 for him. If this fight hits the ground, he's going to have a huge, huge advantage. And if he comes out and goes to that wrestling like he's talked about, then I don't see how Spann is going to put up much of a fight here. But Spann's only plus 115. What am I missing, Gianni?
I agree. I like the Cirkunov side. I really do. Again, I would have rather have minus 125 opener than minus 140, but I think it's still plus EV in this spot. And the reason is obvious. Like you said, I think with Spann, he's been overvalued. His record looks good here in the UFC 5-2. He closed the dog only once. He's winning fights he was supposed to win. And like you said, I'm not even too sure they were all wins. Definitely not the Alvey one. The fight he was a dog, you saw he got knocked out by Johnny Walker. I like Cirkunov in this spot. The analytics for Cirkunov are off the charts. If you see his lands more significant strikes with a higher accuracy, gets hit less, and defends better. Almost 2.5x the takedowns per 15 minutes, 71% takedown defense, more submission attempts. Everywhere in the analytics, he beats them. And I don't even think the price is too high. The one negative, he hasn't fought in a little bit, coming off a layoff, and not having fought in 2020. That's the one knock. Otherwise, I like the Cirkunov side. I don't think, the age difference is that much. The reach advantage isn't that great, So for me, I think you could overcome both those things. I like Cirkunov. I don't think the price is high enough. I think a finish, too. We know both losses for Spann came by finish. Every one of Cirkunov's fights have been a finish. The judges could probably hit the snack stand for this one. I like Cirkunov inside the distance.
Fight doesn't go to decision is minus 400 on this one.
That's why Cirkunov inside the distance plus 120. I mean, not the worst. You're getting a favorite at plus money. That's, I doubt he's going to go to a decision.
That's I mean, the way that we've seen Spann gas out, if you're underneath Cirkunov, you're not lasting 5 minutes. There's no way he lets you off the hook if you're tired and you're on your back for 5 minutes.
And I'm not sure Cirkunov looks in the second round. He hasn't been there since 2016.
That's very true. So I guess why are we not looking at the 1.5, Gianni? I'm not a big fan of 1.5, so I like 2.5s better. But in this fight,
no, let me tell you, that's the psychologically, that's what we think. But statistically, most fights in mixed martial arts end in the first round, end early. In fact, there's a 30% chance almost of a finish in round one. By round two, it's cut in half. So if you get out, if you last 5 minutes, the likelihood of you going the distance doubles in that next round. So when I bet unders, that I don't sweat that much. And also that's why more times than not, I know sharp guys are gonna be like, why did you say that? I'll put that. If you're gonna bet the under, bet the under 2. If you're going to go under 2.5 as opposed to no, you know what I mean? Like you're getting more value.
That 2 minutes and 30 seconds
isn't worth the price you're paying for it. Long term, it's not. The money you're saving by going under 2.5, the difference more times than not, long term, you're going to make out better going under 2.5, higher ROI than the no, even though you're getting 2.5 minutes. They charge you too much for it. Almost like buying a half a point. Almost like buying a half a point in sports. Sure, they'll give it to you because you pay too much for it. Try to do it on 3 in college football or NFL. They're going to charge you 25, 30, 35 cents, not 10, because they know it's worth more. Again, you're not getting any extra value. You're paying for it, but you're not getting it.
I agree. And how many, even us diehard MMA fans, how many, last minute finishes can you think of? Derek Lewis coming back with 1 second left on the clock. Like if you're getting to the 2.5 mark it's probably going to the cards. There's very, very few. There are a couple of examples, but more often than not, if it's getting finished under 2.5, it's not happening at that last second.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what the data shows, 100%. And even when you compare it to the betting line, they've always charged too much for it.
Absolutely. So, all right, we're in agreement here. We like the Misha Cirkunov side. It looks like some money's actually coming back in on Spann, so we might be able to snipe that minus 120. We might be able to pay a little bit better of a price. And then the under 1.5 is about minus 135, minus 140 at this point. And I might be on that one. I don't think that's a bad spot to be, because if Misha Cirkunov can't get the takedown, Spann probably sleeps him. If Cirkunov does get the takedown, I think Spann's in trouble. So I think this will be a one-round fight myself.
I like it. We're on the same side. Cirkunov and under.
All right. Here we go. Main event time, folks. We've got 424 live viewers. Thank you all so much for spending your Monday evening with us. This is Clint from the Diehard MMA podcast. You're watching odds.com with Gianni, the Greek Gambler, our special guest this evening. Make sure you smash that like, give the video a share, and jump in the comments section. Let me know what you're betting this weekend. Main event time, Leon Edwards taking on Belal Muhammad. Now, full open transparency for the chat. I phoned up my guy Gianni, and I was like, Gianni, we're getting Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev. It's going to be the biggest sharps versus square divide of all time. We want the inside information. We want the scoop. And then Khamzat got COVID. So we wanted to give you some cool little nuggets of information. We still got a great show out of it, so nothing missed for sure. But I'm pretty pissed that Khamzat isn't our main event here. In seriousness, though, I hope he recovers. I know he's having a bit of a tough time. I hope he makes it back, because it would be a real shame, not only for his sake, for his health, but it would be a bummer to lose the hottest prospect since John Jones in the UFC. We want to see that guy's future. We got Leon Edwards, 18-3, the biggest dark horse the division has ever seen. A guy that's top level, good numbers, works well all the way around, and just is always disrespected and underrated. The top guys at the division don't want to fight him because he's hard to look good against. He can do everything well. He can strike well. He's a great wrestler, big, strong dude for the division. And we got Belal Muhammad, a guy who's a big fan favorite, 18-3 himself. And basically, in my opinion, he's just the one notch down of Edwards. I mean, Belal has really slick boxing, good footwork, strong wrestling, but he's going to be a little smaller, and he's got a reach disadvantage. I feel like this is almost a mirror matchup, Gianni, with everything just ever so slightly hedged towards Leon Edwards. What's your read on this one?
For me, it's Belal or nothing at all. Yeah, the only negative is the short notice. He fought 4 weeks ago when he's going to fight on Saturday. Otherwise, I'd be more confident. I'd take a bigger position, because I think this is a good spot for Belal. With Edwards' style even. And again, I'm not an X's and O's guy, but just looking at the analytics, with Belal's wrestling, if this remains standing, his volume's enough to win this fight. He could take a shot. And it's not like Leon Edwards is going out there and one shot knocked people out left and right. Guy. He's gone to a lot of decisions. He has more systematically broken guys down when it's been a finish. Third round finish with Sabata, third round sub with Tumenov. It's not as if he's got that, one shot knockout power that you got to be all that fearful of standing. Again, I'm a big fan of Leon Edwards, man. I mean, he's been so impressive in the UFC. It's just Belal's been just as impressive and been a lot more active. I mean, Belal's fought, 5 times since January of 2019. When's the last time Leon Edwards fought? 2019.
Leon has had the worst luck, man. Following that story has been hard to watch. He's had like 4 fights scheduled, and they've all been canceled because of COVID and travel restrictions.
I get it. Maybe because you're prepping for fights, you've been in camp, and that's all positive. But all fighters tell you can't mimic the fight. You can't do it. It's just everyone says the right words. You have to, camp went great, got the great sparring and all that. And then the losing guy will say, yeah, the sparring wasn't great, or you could never get the match, the same intensity in sparring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, as impressive as Leon Edwards has been, where are the negatives in Belal? Where do I see, where are the holes? He's fought in his last 6 fights. He's fought 3 southpaws. It's not as if he hasn't seen southpaws of late. Sure, he lost to one of them, Jeff Neal. That was it. Beat the other 2. So he's seen southpaws. I'm not that worried about that. The reach advantage, it's only 2 inches. Longer than 3 pluses where you start looking towards some statistical significance of an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't scare me all that much. The height of 3 inches, maybe a little bit. 3 years younger, maybe a little bit. But I don't think it justifies a minus, 250 price over 70% of the time. Again, to bet Leon Edwards, I would have to conclude he wins this fight 80% of the time. And Belal just hasn't shown me anything to make me think he would lose 8 out of 10 times if they met in my backyard. I'm not too sure that would happen. Again, you don't expect the cash big dogs as often. It's not the best of circumstances because of the late notice, because of the 4 weeks he fought. And he did go, it's not as if he got it over with 1 shot. He went 3 rounds. He threw 129 significant strikes. So he put himself out there and got tugged by 69 of them. So it's not as if he hasn't gotten hit. In fact, the last 2 times he's gotten hit a combined 150. He's absorbed 150 significant strikes. So granted, on that side, Leon Edwards hasn't taken any punishment. So that's a positive to the Edwards side. And again, I'm not here to argue both sides, but I just don't think the price is justified. I like the Belal Muhammad side based on price. And I even think the analytics and stylistically, I don't think he's that big of a disadvantage. Now, if Edwards goes out there and owns them, then he's just so much better than even any of models that I could come up with show. But again, these wins, there's a split decision in there. There's a bunch of decisions in there. He did outstrike his opponents, but Belal has done the same by significant margins. So again, I think there's value on the dog. Give me Belal or pass for me.
Okay. I don't hate it. I mean, one thing that I can use to kind of back up your argument there is fighters talk about peaking. You know what I mean? They train and they work for that peak to get off on the fight. And when you don't get that peak and you just go back to the drawing board, you got to peak again. And then you go back to the drawing board, you got to peak again. And just these repeated training camps. On top of that, he was fighting the biggest prospect in MMA today. He was going to be under the big lights. He was going to be taking the hype off of the guy that everybody thinks is the uncrowned king already. That's a big thing to get up for. And now he's fighting Belal. Like, maybe there's some aspect of a letdown here. Mentally speaking, for Leon Edwards, you got to wonder if he's as up for this fight as he was for the past 365 calendar days that he's been training for it at this point.
Do you think he could take Belal down and control him?
I think there's a chance he can because of the size. I mean, I want to wait on the weigh-ins for this one because I'll be honest, the UFC stat page, they've been wrong before. They said that Cyril Gane and Jairzinho Rozenstruik were the same height. We know that's not right. So Belal Muhammad is listed at 5'11". Leon Edwards is listed as 6'2". And if that's accurate, that's a Kamaru Usman-esque advantage where he's just able to push people into the fence. He's able to just suck the hips out and get them to the floor. And that's kind of how I see this fight playing out. I think Leon Edwards is just going to be too physical.
That's where the data, everything we work with, at least that shows that's where, if that happens, that would be the bad news for Belal. If Edwards is, at least based on the data, if he's capable of getting a takedown and controlling him, that's where significant advantage. Where Belal could keep it standing with his volume, his path to victory becomes easier. It's not plus 200 if Edwards isn't knocking him out. And I don't see that, at least the power in the data yet,
Yeah, and that's, for the people watching that maybe you're new to this thing, I know the old hats, you guys know exactly what I'm going to say here. Sports betting is just like poker. It's a game of incomplete information. The biggest thing that we have a hard time gauging is power and strength, because we have to go off of optics. So-and-so knocked so-and-so out. He looks like he pushed this guy around. We have to make those assumptions. I think that Leon Edwards is stronger than Belal Muhammad, but I have been wrong there before. And if they get in the cage and Edwards can't take him down, Belal probably works his way to a decision by being more active on the feet. So it's totally possible.
That's what I see possible. That's where I think it's possible for him to pull this off.
It's possible, and that's why this is not a smash spot, Gianni. Like, I'll be honest with you. I know you talked me out of parlays the last time you and I did a show together.
Please, everyone, don't parlay, please. I promise you, over 12 months, putting that $5 on 5 fighters instead of a $25 parlay, you will make more money after those 12 months. Even if you cash a few parlays along the way, it won't recover the losses.
I'll be honest. I was going to parlay Israel Adesanya and Leon Edwards.
See, and this is coming from someone that's hit. Bro, I've hit 18 parlays. I've hit a 10-team parlay. This is coming from someone that's hit some big tickets on parlays. And I am down money on parlays. I'm not up money. I don't think I know anyone that's up money lifetime betting parlays. Like I said, I've cashed some big tickets. 100 to 1, 300 to 1, 850 to 1. And yet I'm not ahead on parlays. No way.
Yeah.
No chance.
And that's exactly I'm glad that you were kind of working that into me here, because I had a bad feeling about Israel Adesanya. I thought he was going to win, but I felt like the line was too wide. And I didn't take the bite. I didn't parlay the 2 favorites that I thought were going to get it done. And I've still got some money in my pocket here because I didn't pull that trigger. I'm tempted to parlay Leon Edwards.
And that's even
I'm not going to do it.
That's even worse reasons. People parlay favorites. Like that's even worse. If you're going to parlay, at least parlay the dogs. So at least you get a good return for your bad bet. Like
swing for the fences.
The fact you're going to use a parlay because both guys are minus 450 and minus 450s win. That's the worst bet you could. At least put $5 on each guy and get back $1.10 or whatever. It's a better bet than putting that $10 parlay. I'm telling you, over time, one of those minus 400s is going to lose. And the return on a 2-fighter parlay at minus 450 isn't enough to overcome that. It just isn't going to win enough. They just don't. Fights in that price range just don't win enough. Or else we would just be blindly betting every minus 400 favorite if they were profitable. That price range just isn't. There are a couple that are, but I can promise you, most that bettors do parlay aren't. And I hope you guys uncover some predictive analytics yourself. And when you do, don't share them with no one, because once you do, your edge will be gone. But share what you can out there with good people.
There you go. Keep the circle tight. All right. That's it, everybody. That's UFC Vegas 21. I'm leaning towards Leon Edwards, but I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to attack it or if I'm going to man up and lay the big chalk on it at this point. I just don't know. It might end up being a pass.
Before we cut off, I don't know what the plan is, but can I just go real quick through the card and say this is what I would bet?
I was just going to kick it to you and ask for you to do exactly that.
I don't want anyone to be on the fence. I rather, even if I'm going to go 0-10, I want to say this is what I do. If you put yourself out there, you can't be afraid to go 0-10.
Absolutely.
But if I had a bankroll, we're betting $100 straight bets, I would have bet. Ray Rodriguez would be a bet. Matthew Semelsberger would be a bet. Davey Grant, small sprinkle. We'll say half for him. The other half on Rojo. We'll put the other half on Rojo. We'll go 1 on Nicolau, 1 on Nicolau, 1 on Yoder, 1 on Tucker. We'll pass Rothwell Lins at that price. We'll go 1 on Cirkunov and 1 on Belal.
There you go.
It's a bunch of bets. It's a bunch of bets.
That's a bunch of bets straight from the gambler himself. All right. So for me so far, I've only got 2 plays locked in. I've got Eryk, your boy Anders at a big plus line. I've got Manel Kape. And what I'm looking at doing is I'm tempted on Matt Semelsberger. The under 2.5 is a spot that I like there in that fight potentially. Potentially the under in Grant versus Martinez. Maybe the under in Rojo, Jourdain. Jourdain by submission for my little sprinkle might be the spot that I'm looking for. I'm probably going to hit Ray Rodriguez round 3, and Gianni may have talked me into an underdog because y'all know me. I love my big, juicy underdogs. I may end up on that one as well. JJ Aldrich is a maybe for me. Tempted on that one. Might lock that in later on this evening. Tempted on Yoder. We'll see. That's going to be – I'm going to wait on that one. We'll see. I'm tempted on Yoder. I'm going to pass on Ige Tucker because I feel like I'm going to be wrong no matter which way I flip that coin. And then maybe Big Rothwell, if he turns into a dog. I might be tempted on my dad if he turns into an underdog. Misha Cirkunov, probably something that I'm going to play, though. There you go. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us, Gianni. We really appreciate you. I'm happy to report that the Minnesota Wild is up 1-0 at this point in time. And, hey, just let the people know where they can find you, what you do. If you want to shout out any sponsors or anything like that, any shows you got coming up, floor's yours, my man.
Please check me out at Greek_Gambler on Twitter. And I do a show, UFC on the Line, for UFC Fight Pass. We do it for every pay-per-view where we get a $1,000 bankroll and we get to bet it. And won the first season, second season. Got to do it again this year. So watch that and cheer us in. But also, we're going to do not this one. The following week, we're going to do 5 of them in a row. So we're doing fight nights and pay-per-views. So 5 straight shows we're going to put out there for you guys on Fight Pass. And again, check me out on Twitter. You know, I like to share as much info as I can. And I like to learn and from bettors myself. Thanks for your time spending it with us. And again, whether you follow or fade, I really do. I hope you cash. I hope you make some money this weekend and in the future, you know, becomes winning bettors. That's my wish for all you guys. And again, thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Gianni. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and we love learning from you. It's the best thing we can do. We're always trying to expand our brains and get different perspectives, and you always bring some hot fire lessons when you come in, so we appreciate your time. Everybody, make sure you give me a follow over at Diehard MMA Pod on Twitter. I tweet out my official plays, so anytime I go with anything, if I haven't tweeted it out, then I haven't bet it, and I'm only going to take shit when I put my money where my mouth is. If you want to talk crap on a lean of mine that I gave that was wrong, I ain't hearing it. If I didn't put money on it, it wasn't that I wasn't that confident on it. But you all go out there, you have a great week, do some damage. Good luck in all your degenerate action. If you're rolling with us in NHL tonight, hopefully we can cash a few extra tickets. And hey, just be kind to one another out there, everybody. Do good. Do good. Thank you all for spending your evening with us. This is odds.com. Make sure you subscribe and let's roll.